Hello, a very warm welcome to the very first in a brand new series I have created called Wild Wisdom Conversations with Nature. This will be a vlog where I share each week insights and intuitive downloads from my natural world, from the nature around me, that I can share with you and share the wisdom that really comes through from the natural world. If we've not met before, I'm Emma O'Brien. I'm a conscious femininity coach and a shamanic guide, and I very much walk in a nature-based world. I live as much as I can in harmony with my natural surroundings. I am very much all about earth stewarding in my own garden. And over my shamanic training and the insights, and the more I have walked this path, the more learnings I have found from the surroundings that are around me. And I want to share those with you because I would really love to spark interest and love and respect for our natural world. I don't think we have enough of that in a very relatable way. One of the things I think is very important about a shamanic practice and shamanism in general is how does wisdom from the natural world, wisdom from the spirit realm, intuitive knowledge, how does it translate into the day-to-day, into practical ways that you can walk it in your everyday life when you're at work, not just when you're in a meditation, not just when you're convening with spirit, not just when you're sitting outside with nature. How do we bring that wisdom into the everyday and live better from that space? So this is what this series is all about. I am allowing this to very intuitively unfold. And I had got a bit of a plan of what I was going to talk about in this first vlog. And then I went out for my morning trot round the block to do a bit of exercise. And I was greeted by an awful lot of swallows. So I don't normally see swallows on my morning walk, but this morning I saw about 12 of them. And some of them were flying around me and in front of me and very close to me. So I thought, I think we have a sign here that swallows would like to be the first creature that I share and talk about on this vlog series. So in particular, I want to talk about barn swallows, and I'm going to quickly share a picture of one here for you in case you are not quite familiar with what a barn swallow is. Swallows are these beautiful, very agile, I think they're just fantastic little birds, and some of them are migratory. The barn swallow is migratory, which is why particularly I want to talk about it. Some of them stay put, but they might migrate locally from kind of higher areas to more low wetland areas. These guys are very special to me because, in case you hadn't noticed from the accent, I'm British, but I live in South Africa, and I to and fro. So swallows for ever since I moved here in 2009 have had I've had a real affinity for them because barn swallows migrate every year from South Africa to Europe. And I'll share a little bit more about the barn swallows that live next door to my dad's house, which we do often sit and wonder, do those barn swallows come all the way to South Africa? And could I have encountered them somewhere, which is even more exciting? So let me stop sharing this here. So what makes swallows special, and especially barn swallows? So they're little birds. They're about sort of 17 centimeters in size. They're little teeny tiny birds. And these little barn swallows migrate every year from the UK where they summer. So they'll arrive in the UK about mid-April and they will come to their nests. They will have babies, and then when it gets to sort of mid-September, they will then start their 6,200 mile, that's 10,000 kilometer trip from the UK, Europe, wherever they are, all the way back to South Africa. And they do that, and then once the seasons start to shift here in South Africa, they get ready to do that big migrate all the way back to their nesting grounds. So very sensibly, they sort of the absolutely fabulous birds, aren't they, really? They don't winter anywhere cold. I think swallows woke up and went, you know what, guys, we don't like cold weather. So what we'll do is a few months in the UK when the weather is actually vaguely good, and then we'll spend the rest of the time in Africa when it's warm all the time. I mean, win-win, love it. So they will migrate. They do this wonderful trip. They don't breed in South Africa when they come back. They literally come back to winter, summer here, and to rest and recoup and molt. And they'll bring their babies back with them. So they will flock. They will migrate in a massive flock altogether. And I mean, you can imagine it's a really arduous journey to do 10,000 kilometers. It takes them about 6 weeks to do that. And they'll go over Africa, over Europe, and they will get to their nesting sites. What's really interesting is they pair bond, so they will more or less mate for life as much as a bird can. I guess if something happens to their mate, they'll probably pair up with somebody else. They don't generally travel, they'll travel in the same flock, but what they tend to do is meet up with their mate back at their original nesting site each year, and they go, okay, cool, it's you again, let's go. And they will nest in the same places year on year on year, which I just think is so fascinating when you think of this little tiny bird. And often we can think, well, birds aren't very smart. But these guys, they know their route, they migrate, they migrate to the same place. My dad has some barn swallows that are next door in his neighbor called Barbara. They live in Barbara's barn. They love human structures. So I think swallows and humans have, a bit like dogs and humans, have been together through evolutionary history for a very long time. So they love human structures. They love porches, they love barns, they love eaves, they love spaces where people are. So go figure, really. And these swallows, Dad and I both sit and go, how do the swallows know to come back to Barbara's barn every single year? They'll come back, they'll use the same nest, they'll give it a bit of a repair. They'll come back every year to the same spot. And swallows are, they're quite social, so they'll share the barn, they might share with a couple of other swallow families, but they will come back to their same nest. And it's really interesting because I'm obviously in South Africa, my dad's in the UK, so we swap notes about when the swallows are there. So he said to me that the swallows arrived last year for him in about mid-April. And I noticed this morning, I think they're very busy because they will be gearing up to leave shortly, I think. So what they tend to do when they're prepping before their big journey, they will start to congregate together. They're obviously going to be stocking up on food and snacks and building themselves up for a very long, arduous journey. So when they travel, they will stop along the way, but sometimes they're traveling 200 miles a day. They're covering these teeny tiny birds in their very intuitive flocks that they all maneuver around with. So they're really impressive birds. So if you haven't paid attention to swallows, so wherever you are, there will be some species of swallow. They're a global bird. The only place they are not is Antarctica. So pay attention. If it is approaching, so if you are Southern Hemisphere, like me, you will be in summer, will be starting to shift soon into autumn. So if you start to notice lots of swallows and also swifts as well, they fly quite high and they've got sort of scimitar wings, they'll be starting to congregate in bigger flocks now. So have a look and see. They're insect eaters. So they are flying on the wing and they're catching things as they're going along. If you have a body of water near you, they like to skim and drink, and obviously water and ponds are great places for mosquitoes and little creatures. So they'll be very busy around places like that. So pay attention and see if you can see any of them. If you're Northern Hemisphere, you're going to be waiting for them. They're going to be arriving probably from mid-March onwards. So if you start to pay attention, you'll see them when they come in. And it's really nice to be able to pay attention and notice them and notice this natural world and this wonderful migration that just happens around us. And until we start paying attention to it, we just don't know it's happening and it's going on. And then it's really, really interesting. One thing I think I will say about nature, and it's something that I find quite soothing with it, is in this world of ours that is very uncertain a lot of the time. Our day-to-day lives are, if we're lucky, drama-free and maybe not very exciting, but you never really know what's around the corner. We have lots of worries, we have lots of anxieties about the future and what's going to happen. You know, the world in general is pretty on the edge at the moment. But the wonderful thing is, when you start to pay attention to the nature around you, you'll see that it has routines. It's cyclical. I am very tight with the birds in my garden because I feed them. And it's really interesting. I can watch which birds come. I've got a couple of baby birds in the garden at the moment, so I see them. They're resident here. They're living in the garden or very close to. They will arrive in the garden at the same time every day. I will have the same birds will come to the table where I put food out for them every day. If I watch the routine as if I sit in the garden in the evening, the birds will be quite active, and then as the sun starts to go down, the last one singing will be the robins. So you can start to have a look at which songbirds are near you. Robins have really beautiful melodic little tunes that they sing. They will be the last ones singing when everybody else has gone to bed. And what will happen as the robins start to get themselves ready for bed and they stop singing, the bats will come out. And this is a routine that happens every day, and it'll be happening near you in your garden as well. And I think sometimes it's really soothing to pay attention to the routine in our environment, which can actually just be quite soothing if you're feeling anxious and you're a bit unsure of things. Have a look at what happens every day in your garden because it'll give you a bit of a guidepost of continuity. And of course, things change as the seasons change. I'm going to talk more about this, but as you pay attention to things that shift and change in your garden, you'll start to be able to almost predict what's going to happen, who's going to come out at what time, who can I expect to see here? When am I going to see the most activity with the birds in the garden? When do I see the most insects coming in? And it just gives a little bit of safety, I want to say, in a world that can feel quite unsafe and anxiety inducing a lot of the time. So, if we have a look at the medicine that swallows have to offer. So when we talk about medicine in shamanic terms, we're talking about what does an animal or a plant or an archetype have, what wisdom does it have that you can learn from to improve things or change something for the better or have a positive impact. So what is swallow medicine? And I've sat with this and I think what do these animals represent for me? And you can think about if there's an animal that you have a particular affinity for, why do you have an affinity for that animal? Now, there are lots of books you can find that'll help you find kind of meanings with different animals, but all we've got in those books, and they're a great starting point, is somebody else's interpretation of what that animal means. And each animal will have different meaning and medicine for you. So for me, like I said at the beginning, I have a real affinity for swallows because they migrate. They effectively have two homes. And that's how I've always felt. I've been in South Africa for a long time. But if you were to ask me where is home, my family are all in the UK, so there's a home base there for me. As soon as I arrive in the UK, I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing here. I know where to go. I know how to navigate around here because it's where I grew up. It's where I'm from. But South Africa is also home for me. This is where my main home base is. It's where the dogs are. It's where the husband is. It's where the house is. It's where my things are. But I have homes. Two places are home for me, which for a barn swallow, it has a nesting and a home in the UK where it has its babies, and it has a home in South Africa where it comes back to go, oh God, I've had all the children now, and we're just going to have a lie down in summer with some margaritas. So they represent home. Where is home? Where is home? What does home mean for you? They are resilient little creatures. For something so tiny, I think they travel even further than hummingbirds travel. And I mean, hummingbirds are not really geared up for long distance travel, but yet they manage it. So swallows are incredibly resilient. It takes tenacity and perseverance and really being resilient to be able to migrate 10,000 kilometers twice a year. Twice a year, 20,000-kilometer round trip these teeny tiny birds do every single year. So where can you be more resilient? Where are you resilient? Where are you not giving yourself enough credit for being resilient? How could you build your resilience? What does resilience mean for you? How would it serve you in your life if you became more resilient in the face of challenges? The other thing I get from swallows is this real cyclical nature of listening to and watching what's happening around them, which we as humans do not do enough. We don't pay enough attention to the cycles that are happening around us. We don't pay enough attention to the cycles that happen in our own lives. We don't pay attention to our energetic cycles, how the moon affects us. All of these things affect us because we're living in a cyclical world. Like the seasons change, we will have changes in seasons of our lives, seasons where we're really productive and lots happen, seasons when it's actually time to rest and recuperate. Can you pay attention to the seasonal changes? So swallows watch for seasonal changes. The thing that kicks them off to go, it's time to leave Africa now and go to our nesting ground is the changes in the lengths of the days. And they start to pay, and vice versa, as the days start to get shorter in the UK or in Europe, wherever they are, they will then go, it's time for us to think about packing our bags and heading off for our summer vacation. I just love that they do that. The other thing is they trust their ability to know their own way. I mean, I don't really think anyone can say they know exactly how migratory animals find their way, because unless you're a swallow, we're never going to 100% know. But in theory, they are using a memory bank of visual landmarks that they're going to be looking for. The swallows that live in Barbara's barn are going to be looking for visual landmarks in the village to go and find Barbara's barn. So, of course, the impact that we have on our natural wildlife is that as we're smashing down natural areas and getting rid of woods and building things, it's confusing for migratory animals and they have to adapt. So they're adaptable. These swallows are adaptable. The village that Barbara's barn swallows live in will have changed so much over the ancestry of that lineage of swallows that come there, but yet they still find it every year. So they are using the Earth's magnetic field, the sun and the moon and the stars to find their way all the way up Africa, across Europe and into Northamptonshire to Barbara's barn. They trust that they know the way. And they fly and they go. They're not overthinking it. They're not worrying about it. They just go, well, we trust we can find the way. So where can you trust your inner compass more? So if we're channeling swallow medicine, how can you trust your own intuition? How can you allow your intuition to lead the way for you and to trust that you know, and to trust that if you start out on a journey, you'll be able to figure it out and find your way as you go along. They fly in a flock, so they'll work in a big team to maneuver around. And birds, when they flock, if you watch them, it's incredible to watch. Even if it's a flock of pigeons, if you watch them flocking, everybody's tuned in to everybody else and they all move as one. So they're listening and they're watching and they're responding and they're intuitively responding to what's happening and the movement that's happening and the way they need to go. Nobody's in charge. No one's going, hey folks, I'm the leader. They're all working together. So if we're channel swallow, how can you work together with the people around you to live more harmoniously? They are traditionally, if we start to take meanings of swallows into account, people think they herald the arrival of summer. So as the saying, one swallow doesn't make a summer. No, it probably doesn't. You need to wait for a few more to arrive to be sure that summer is coming. But they herald hope and they herald positive change. So if you suddenly start to see swallows, so this is how animal medicine and the universe will start to speak to you when you start paying attention. Who do you notice? Do you notice that suddenly you're seeing swallows like I did this morning? I mean, I'm very attuned to birds. I'm very attuned to it. That's a story for another day of how I'm so attuned to it. But I'm very, very attuned to birds. So I'm always paying attention to what birds are around, how many are there, what's going on. And I walk this area. I've been walking this area I've been living here for, 9 years. And I walk regularly here. And this is the first morning where I've seen a lot of swallows altogether. And, some of them, they flew round me. So I know they're like, hello, this is a sign for you to pay attention to us. We're showing you something. And sometimes when animals and the universe is talking to us through animal medicine, it's not always seeing the actual animal. You might see a picture of an animal repeatedly. Pay attention to it. What animal is it? What message do you think it might have for you? And if you see, the same birds all the time, if you see the same creature, you'll start to notice the synchronicity with it. And that is a sign to be paying attention to what does it have to share with you. And I think for me, to come back to the swallows this morning, it was a sign to start to do something new and start to shift, because they are starting to shift and change and get ready. I think the last thing that I take from swallows, if we look at how they start to congregate ahead of time before they go on their big journey, is how can you pre-prepare, if I could use my words, pre-prepare for life's big challenges, life's big journeys. How can you better prep yourself? And this is a big part of resilience. So this swings beautifully into the resilience piece with swallows. Is the better prepared you are for something, the more easier you can adapt to any changes that happen along the way. Resilience is all about the ability to prepare for, deal with, and recover from challenges. The more resilient you are, the less you're buffeted around by the natural storms that happen in our lives. So how can you prepare better so that you're not knocked off course? Because you have to prepare for a 10,000-kilometer migratory journey. You have to be fit, you have to be well fed, you have to be in good shape to be able to survive that journey. So I hope you have enjoyed this very first Wild Wisdom vlog. Like I said, I'm going to be channeling what comes through for me from my surrounds, what comes through for me intuitively, what comes through in the dream space. And I will share something every week that you can channel, you can use, you can sit with. I wanted to just leave you with a few reflective questions that I think are really pertinent if we're thinking about swallows. And those are, where is home for you? What does home look like? Where is home? Home might be a place, or home might be a feeling, but it's really interesting to be able to think about what is home, what and where is home for you? Where can you develop more resilience? What do you need to be more resilient in the face of the things that challenge you in your life? How can you prepare better for the big life events that challenge you? And invariably, we met with those at random all the time. But how can you better prepare? And that might be things like learning to manage stress better, so you're not stressed so easily. That's a big one. It might be that you need to get your admin done and not procrastinate on things. It could be tiny things, it could be big things. But how can you prepare for the inevitable challenges that life throws at you so that it goes more smoothly? And where do I not trust myself when really I know the way? How can you start to listen to your intuition more? What would it take for you to trust yourself more and trust your own inner sense of direction and knowing where you're going, and knowing that even if perhaps you don't know where you're going, that you can navigate and find the way? I would love to hear from you when you start paying attention. If you are seeing swallows locally to you, whenever you're listening to this, if you are Northern Hemisphere, they will be coming soon. So, can you notice them? Where are they? Where do they stay? Are there some near you? How can you support the birds and the nature around you as well? Because one of the really beautiful things about living in reciprocity and earth stewarding the natural space around you is it will repay you. Because when creatures feel that around you and in your garden is a safe space for them, and it's a space where their trees aren't going to be randomly cut down, where there aren't going to be cats that are going to eat the birds there, where there's going to be a plentiful supply of food, when they start to trust that you are creating a safe space for them, they will arrive and they will share that space with you. And there is something so beautiful about sharing space with birds and with natural creatures and just watching them coming and going. It is a wonderful stress reliever. It is a wonderful way to really soothe yourself and just to be present in the moment, which I think a lot of us find really, really hard to do. And it is a wonderful way when you can be present in your body, in your garden, with what's happening for you. It's really, really soothing for your nervous system and it'll help you feel better. So I will see you same time next week. I have no idea what I'm going to see you with. So let's just allow this to um, unfold. And if you want to know more about my shamanic work, I do power animal retrieval, I do soul retrievals, and I do conscious femininity coaching. I do nervous system coaching. Pop me a message, get in touch with me. I'm going to pop details in the description under the video. I'm also going to pop these little reflective questions in there as well, so you can come back and have a look at those and work through those if you want to. And of course, I love it if you pop over and say hi to me on Instagram. It's at Emma O'Brien Coach. And of course, if you have enjoyed this, I would love for you to like and subscribe and share this with somebody else who will enjoy it. I will see you again. Bye for now.